Welcome back to the Saints and Alumni Show right here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint. I'm your host this week, Brandon Murphy, class of 2017 from the Office of Alumni Engagement. And this week I'm joined by Bobbie Cardea, class of 2024 and Troy Middle School English teacher. A reminder to everybody listening to the Saints and Alumni Show, a bi-weekly podcast highlighting members of the Siena community. You can listen here on 88.3 The Saint, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, and subscribe to the Siena College Alumni YouTube channel to watch the complete selection of shows. We've got an incredible show lined up today. It's the end of summer. Bobbie is in studio before she gets back inside the classroom. Bobbie, it's your first time on our podcast. How does it feel to be back on campus today, and how was the summer?
Summer was great. I took some time off. I was doing some grad classes, so I was being a student for once again. But it feels great to be back on campus. I love it here. So any excuse to get here, I take.
And yeah, it sounds like you've been on our podcast before because you gave us some great answers into what we're going to talk about later in today's segment, being back inside the classroom as a student, back inside the classroom as a teacher. And before we kind of unpack all of that, we always like to begin the show by unpacking the connection that the guest has to Siena. For me, my connection begins, in 2010 when my older brother, Ryan, went to Siena. And we always kind of want to give our listeners some insights into your journey and how you got affiliated with Siena. As you look back on where you grew up and kind of what you were looking for in a college experience, can you walk our listeners through a little bit of that thought process?
Yeah, so when I first was looking at schools, I thought that I was going to want to go to a huge school, be in a sorority, do all that stuff. And Siena was something I hadn't even heard of until my junior year of high school because one of my friends was going. And I was just going to visit her a few times, never thought that this would be where I would go to school. Decided to take a real tour after she had toured me around. And I just loved it. The whole admissions office really just made it very welcoming and made it really open to me. I had met people through her, so I already had some friends here, and it just seemed like such a great place. Towards the end of my college search, I started to think maybe I shouldn't go because I don't want people to think I'm just following my friends everywhere. But quickly realized that I was comparing every other school I toured to here, and it was just very apparent that this is where I was supposed to be.
It was kind of nice when my older brother, Ryan, went to Siena. We had siblings weekend and we had families weekend, and my twin and I were able to come and visit him and kind of get that Siena experience. But actually, I was going to go on one side of I-90, and Andy was going to go on the other side of I-90, and we ultimately ended up deciding to attend Siena, and that summer moving into Siena was so exciting, packing, saying goodbye to high school friends. Siena's a little different where we are the last people to go to school.
Everybody else left before me. I was home all by myself and everybody else left, and I was like, okay, I guess it's just me now. I
remember having 2 weeks left of okay, well, do I go visit my high school friends at Oneonta now?
Right.
I have nothing else to do. But for you, Bobbie, you had a little bit of a different experience as well with your transition into Siena because it was that COVID transition. And we have been doing this podcast for 5 years, and we haven't really talked about this topic yet of that transition. Can you let our listeners know a little bit about the summer that you had and moving into Siena and what that experience was like?
Yeah, so obviously graduating in 2020 was probably the worst time to graduate ever. So, we didn't really get the end of our senior year at all. So summer was really crazy because it was half of us trying to catch up on senior activities that we missed out on. And then the other half was packing my car to leave my family. But it was also kind of weird for me because as much as a lot of my friends were leaving, a lot of them ended up not leaving. So I know my friend that went to Oneonta, she stayed home for the first semester and did everything online. And then a couple of my friends actually stayed and went to our community college for a year instead of going to school right away. So it was really weird being one of the only people that was actually going to school and actually about to go take real classes. Because again, my friends that did leave, they were going and they were living in dorms but taking online classes. So that was a really weird transition for me. But that summer, obviously, we couldn't have open houses and stuff like how everybody else did, or the end of the year open houses. And so we had Zoom calls. And so I met half of my friends freshman year in Zoom calls before we got to Siena, which was just so weird. But honestly, I don't know how it worked out, but I was friends with them all throughout college. Some of them I took my senior pictures with right before graduation. So it worked out somehow, but it was definitely different and a little crazy trying to do it that way. But I'm thankful that we still got to like meet people even in such a crazy time.
You know, I never even thought about saying goodbye to my high school buddies, but they're actually just going on to Zoom classes. And
Yeah.
it was so nice that Siena really made this effort to have the full Siena experience as best as possible. I remember walking down the academic quad in September and seeing all these tents across the quad and having these outside classroom experiences, even though they were really inside the classroom. And that's how we want to pivot to the second half of the first segment today and talk about those inside the classroom experiences and begin with your education journey here at Siena. I believe you came in as a chemistry major, but you kind of transitioned into a different pathway. Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of background on that journey for you?
Sure. So yeah, I did apply and I got accepted to Siena as a chemistry education major. I was really into science in high school. I really, really liked it. And then the summer before, like maybe a month or two before we actually got to campus, I had like this epiphany in my head of like, do I really want to be a chemistry major in college? Like as much as I love it, like, do I want to put myself through that? And so I thought about it a little bit and I was like, you know what, let me go in undecided education instead. And then I'll just like explore everything, see what I actually really like. And then my freshman year, I took Intro to Lit and I also took a exploring liberal arts class that both kind of pointed me in the direction of English. I had some teachers that I really, really liked and they kind of made me realize, oh, I kind of want to keep going in this path instead of going down the STEM route. I love my women in STEM. I'm just not one of them. So yeah, that's kind of, I just switched to English after that. I liked English my whole life. It just wasn't like the same for me as sciences were. But then when I got to college, I was like, oh wait, like this is actually like, I really actually do like it. So I think that was definitely a good choice for me because if I was a chem major, I don't think I would have been as happy as I was.
I remember some of my hall mates in Heinz Hall, they were like chemistry and bio majors, and you take organic chemistry final, the Saturday 8 p.m. final of finals weekend. It was just like brutal. But I'm absolutely loving the transition answers that you're giving, and you gave us a glimpse of it in your last one of the professors that you really enjoyed as you were getting your feet wet within the English department. And I kind of want to put these two questions together because it's two professors that had a positive impact on your Siena experience, and that's Professor Deering and Professor Spain Savage. Can you highlight for our listeners who they are here on campus and why they really helped solidify your passion for English?
Yeah, so Professor Deering was my Intro to Lit teacher, and then she also did my public speaking class, which were two really big classes for me on campus because, again, Intro to Lit was the class that made me realize, like, oh, I really do want to do English. And then my public speaking class was honestly probably one of the best classes I've taken on campus. It technically is like a writing class, but it really, you know, as being a teacher, I need to know how to speak to people. So it definitely was very, very helpful. She was just such a sweet, sweet woman, and she really wanted to help. She knew that I was in like the transition phase of trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my major. So she helped me a lot with that kind of stuff. And I really do adore her. Professor Spain Savage is probably one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. She is hilarious. She's hysterical. I took a Shakespeare class with her, and I took English literature, I'm pretty sure. I think it was. But she was the best, and I had her twice in the same day, and it was really funny because I had her in the very morning, and then I had her like late afternoon, and she always told me that my demeanor shifted so much because I was not a morning person. And she was like, I could just tell that you're like not happy in the mornings. And I was like, no, I'm not. But she's just hysterical, and she made, you know, every class so much fun. And I liked Shakespeare, like I always have, but she just made it like so much more fun for everybody. We got to do projects at the end of the year, and me and my partner picked to joust because it was a like Shakespearean times thing. So I bought jousting rods from Walmart, like blow up ones. And this was when they had just announced the new president, and he was on campus doing like a meet and greet event, and there's a picture of me and him blowing up the jousting rods together because I had class right after and I needed them. So that class was just so fun, and both of them were just such wonderful people that really made, like, if you had a problem, they were very helpful. and they wanted to help you, and it just was so obvious that they wanted to help you. So I couldn't have asked for better people to be my professors. I tried to take every class I could with them, but they were really the best.
We might have to use that photo of you and the president to promote the podcast episode. And we've got just under 5 minutes left in the first segment of today's show. And I want to kind of conclude with these final two questions as it helps us pivot into the later half of today's show. And that's the student teaching experience that you had, Bobbie. First, though, can you kind of give us a little bit of a background on how student teaching is structured here at Siena and kind of how that process works for you before we get into the experiences?
Yeah, so the way that Siena does student teaching is in your fall semester, or the summer before your senior year, you get your placement. So you'll find out where you are, who your teacher is, what your grade is. And then your fall semester, you'll do, I think it's 30 hours in your classroom, or it's 25 in your classroom and then 5 in your opposite placement. So since I was in high school, I did 5 in a middle school setting and then 25 in my classroom. You could structure that however you wanted. I did 3 hours every Friday because I was very busy doing other things, so I really could only go on Fridays. Some people went more than that many hours. You just needed the minimum of that. And then in the spring, you full-time student teach. So you're taking 2 classes at Siena that one of them was an hour and then one of them was a 3-hour. And the rest of the time, you're at your school from, I was there 7:30 to 3. So I was at Mohannesson in Rotterdam, and I was teaching 10th and 12th grade. But it was like a full-time job. So it was a lot, but it really was helpful because I know like some other schools will have you there like half days. I really liked being there full day because it honestly prepares you very well, obviously, because that's exactly what you do in the real world. So I really liked the structure of it, being honest. I loved my teacher. Me and her had a great relationship. I still talk to her to this day. So it was a really positive experience for me. I loved the way that we did it, and I really think that I got the most out of it with the way that Siena laid it out.
When we come back in the second segment of today's show, we're going to unpack a little bit on the outside of the classroom experiences at Siena, and then inside and outside the classroom experiences with Bobbie as a teacher at the Troy Middle School. Stay with us. We'll be right back here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint. Welcome back to the Saints and Alumni Show right here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint. I'm your host this week, Brandon Murphy, class of 2017, from the Office of Alumni Engagement. And this week, I'm joined by Bobbie Cardea, class of 2024, and Troy Middle School English teacher. So in the first segment of today's show, Bobbie, we talked a lot about the inside of the classroom experiences. But the listeners know that the Siena experience isn't just about that. And there's so much that we do outside of the classroom. And for you, outside of lesson planning, outside of the classroom. And there's a lot that we get to unpack now in the second segment. And the first one that I want to talk about is your time as a Saint with the acronym Students Assisting in New Transitions. Can you talk a little bit about what a Saint does here on campus, why you wanted to get involved, and the time that you had doing it?
Yeah, so Saints are basically just orientation leaders, the simplest way to put it. But the way that we do orientation, obviously we do it when you first get to campus. It's like we don't do it over the summer like a lot of other schools do. So it's kind of your first welcoming to campus and your first introduction to campus. So we try to be, big and bold about it. But I really wanted to be a Saint because a bunch of my friends honestly were Saints. I only did it my senior year. All my other years I was working for admissions, so I was coming early for admissions and things like that. But I ended up not doing it until my senior year, and all of my friends were Saints. My senior year, a bunch of my friends were STEMs, so it was super fun. I actually had one of my friends as a STEM, so it was really cool. But I could see how close they all were, and because I was there, when they were there, but I just wasn't a part of it originally my past few years, I saw how much fun they had and how close they were, and it really just was like a bond that like no other group on campus really had, because it goes through the whole year. Like you don't end at the beginning of orientation, like you go through the whole year being friends with these people. So I really wanted to get involved with that. It was super fun. I'm so happy I did it. I had a really good orientation group. My girls were really, really cool. I still talk to a few of them now, but they were, they made it easy on me because they were an easy group. But again, like we did like at the beginning of every day, we had little skits that we did. So there was like dress like your STEM day and like all these different things. And those were so fun. Just, trying to do the best we could to come up with really good ideas about it. One day we all dressed like the Lorax and the trees. And it was so silly, but so fun at the same time. So definitely a really positive experience. I did the whole interview process while I was abroad. So that was really cool. I was one of like the only Saints that I think I was the only new hire that got hired abroad. But it was like, that was a whole different experience that like I didn't even really think about. Was like, oh, I got to do this while I'm like gone. But it was super fun. I really enjoyed it.
Especially in a different time zone too. Right?
Yeah.
You got all these factors coming into play. I actually lived with my Saint my junior year. So the senior class was really, really small. And I actually lived with my Saint in the townhouse my junior year, which was like an incredible, like full circle moment.
Yeah.
And Siena's so big on traditions. And there was a brief moment during the pandemic where, some of the alumni that worked at Siena, we were like, are some of these traditions going to come back?
Right.
And Bobbie, you were one that were all in on the traditions and helped one come back as the 21 Club chair. Can you talk a little bit about what the 21 Club is here at Siena and how you brought it back and brought the energy back to the senior class?
Yeah, so 21 Club is like, it's like a weird mix between part of class council and part of Dog Pound. So we get funds from Dog Pound to be able to go to a bar before some of our home games. So we pick 3 home games a year, and you get a couple of drink tickets, you go to the bar, and it's only for the senior class. So that's really cool too. You get a little bit more bonding time with your class. And we will go and we have food. We did different catering options every time. So like one time we had DeBellis cater us. It was so good. But it was me, and then Nicola Polis was my other chair. We were co-chairs my senior year. So which was crazy because we were also freshman year roommates. So me and her would put together everything. We had to book the brewery, and we booked all the food and all that stuff. But it was so fun. Like, you would just, because we would get bused there and everything. So it was so much fun, and you get a little bit more excited before the games and things like that. And being part of like the class council too was so much fun because we all kind of did it together. Like our senior week people and us, we all kind of like gave each other a little bit of input towards everything. So I felt like I had like a say in everything that was happening, which was really nice. But just even like at the events, it was so fun. Like I remember there was one time where the bus was leaving early and we didn't need it to leave, so I had to chase it down the street. And so I was running down the street after this bus, and it was, I think there's a video of me doing it somewhere, but it was so fun. So I really enjoyed doing that. It was a fun experience.
One of the favorite memories that I had was most of the time in 2017, 21 Club was on a Friday. And people forget sometimes that class ends at like 2 o'clock on a Friday.
Yeah.
So you pregame from like 2 to 5, and then you go to 21 Club to actually pregame,
Yep.
and then you go to the basketball game.
Yeah, that's what we would try to get them on Fridays every time for that exact reason, but it was super fun.
And we're just about halfway through the second segment now, and I kind of want to transition into some of the additional on-campus stuff that you involved in. And the first one I'm thinking about is your time as president of the education club here at Siena. Could you talk a little bit about your journey within that club and some of the great maybe programming or initiatives you kind of spearheaded as president?
Yeah, so we it was a really fun club, honestly. I was involved in it my sophomore year too. I was public relations officer, and then I eventually moved up to being president. It was super cool. We would do a lot of fundraiser stuff. We would collect classroom materials to bring to Schenectady High, and they would kind of distribute it around the schools from there. So that was super fun. But we did a lot of programming on campus, so a lot of the times students would be able to come and kind of just get like a chill from classes. We made tote bags a lot. That was our big fun one that I really liked. We also had a lot of teachers coming in that would talk to us about things. So we had a couple of like newer teachers that would come in, and then a lot of our members, their parents were teachers from the area, so they would come in and speak and just kind of talk about what was going on. We also had a Spilling the Tea on Student Teaching night where the seniors would, it was like our last meeting, and they would come in and tell everybody like the truth about like what you go through for student teaching. So that was my favorite one to participate in because I loved telling them everything that happened. But it was definitely really fun, and I tried my best to get as many people as I could to come. And that was our big event every year, was like people would come for that. So that was my kind of push too, was trying to get that in there.
Well, I'm going to jump down to this next question of working with admissions because it's a lot of fun. And, sometimes we have guests on the podcast and I say, hey, when was your last time on campus? And they'll say 5 or 6 years ago. For you, Bobbie, you said yesterday.
Yes.
And you came and visited admissions because you have such a great relationship with them. Can you talk a little bit about the different roles you had within admissions and the networking and friendships that you made?
Yeah. So my freshman year, I was it was like kind of like the step before being a tour guide. I did that my freshman year, and then halfway through my freshman year, I got asked to be a real tour guide. So started that then. And then with being a tour guide, you come early, just like how the Saints do and all that kind of stuff. So that was super fun. But then after that, I ended up my senior year being an intern in the office, which that's when I was really just there all the time. So like my fall semester, if you couldn't find me, I was in the admissions office sitting somewhere in there. Super fun. We did a lot of the stuff with the open houses, and I did a lot of, connecting with students, which also was really cool because when I was student teaching, a lot of my kids were also applying to Siena. So I was talking to them at school, and then I was talking to them when I was at Siena, and it was just kind of like a cool little mesh between all of it. But I loved my time in admissions. I made some really good connections there. Got really close. Obviously, I still go see them all the time. So, yeah, it was one of the best things I probably did. It was a really nice way to get involved because I did a lot of programming with it. So I also met a lot of people. So it got me very involved and very, into the campus experience.
And we've got time left now just for two themes. And the first theme is study abroad. And then I want to kind of highlight your first year as a young alumni and in your career of teaching. And aside from preparing for a Saints interview, studying abroad,
right?
I believe there's probably some other amazing experiences that you had while studying abroad. Can you let our listeners know a little bit about where you went, kind of how it was set up over there with the classes, and maybe some trips that you took and experiences that you had?
So I was in Glasgow, Scotland, which was the best place I could have picked. Super, super fun. I traveled. I went to Italy while I was there. I went to Portugal. I went to Ireland twice. I was in Ireland for St. Patrick's Day, so that was fun. But it was super, super fun. I didn't have a lot of classes because the way that they structure classes there wasn't the same. And also they were on strike half the time that I was there. So I was like never in class. I did learn, though. Don't take away my diploma, please. I did learn. But I did learn some things. It just was at a more fast rate because I didn't have classes as much. Super fun, though. A lot of time to travel. And I traveled around Scotland a lot as well. I also did have to pick housing while I was abroad for my house, which was kind of crazy. But I had some great roommates. Shout out all them from Townhouse 37. So they did do all the housing stuff for me, which was really nice of them. I did meet one of the girls that I lived with the day that I moved in, though, which we're best friends now. And we actually live in our apartment together. So great. But no, study abroad was actually the best thing I've ever done. It was something that was really important to me when I was picking a school, was somewhere that I could study abroad, especially with being a teacher. Sometimes it's weird, like trying to do that. But Siena made it really easy for me. And I just took a bunch of English classes while I was there. So it was really, really fun. And I'm really happy I did it.
So it's interesting. I was in Scotland in 2022, and they were also on strike in 22.
Yeah, they're on strike a lot.
TransLink system, there was no trains to get you anywhere. It was really, really interesting because it was also the time of the Open Championship, and there was like 200,000 people trying to get to St. Andrews. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we got time left just for one last theme, and I want to conclude the show with your time as a young alumni and as a teacher in the Capital Region. You just completed your first year of teaching and transitioning into your second year at a new position. Congratulations on the new job.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about that first year, you know, jitters and experiences and what you're looking forward to in this new role at Troy Middle School?
Yeah. So first year was a little crazy. Obviously, I was teaching 9th grade. So that transition year for them was also a transition year for me. So kind of just all over the place. But they were super good. I loved my kids this year. They really were like the best. So I can't really complain about that. But definitely a lot. Like, I had never done 9th grade before, and my student teaching was 10th grade, so I didn't have like a super bunch of stuff planned for 9th grade. I was able to transition some of my 10th grade stuff to 9th grade, which was nice, but definitely a lot to do, and it was very overwhelming. And then towards the end, I also was starting my master's classes, so I was doing both at once, and it was a lot, but very rewarding. I'm super excited for Troy. I'll be with a couple of people from Siena, so that'll be nice, is getting to work with them right down the hall from me. I am doing middle school, which I've never done before, so that'll be a new transition for me. But excited that I have a bunch of people around me that also, you know, will be able to help me and I'm comfortable with already, so it's not meeting a bunch of new people as well. But very exciting.
Well, it's so great to see how your Siena experience prepared you for this incredible career in teaching, and we're so looking forward to seeing you continue to succeed. Troy is amazing, not just the Troy Middle School and the Siena connections there, but downtown Troy as well.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you back on to talk about your hobbies outside of work, the ways that you're staying connected with Siena, and so many other things, but time truly does fly on the show, and as it did with your Siena experience. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Saints and Alumni Show. Have a great weekend.